All right, welcome back, everybody. As we approach 3 months of widespread protests in Iran following the death of Mahsa Amini, we are reminded of similar protests back in 2020 when Ukrainian flight PS 752 was shot down by an Iranian missile shortly after taking off from Tehran on January 8th. All 176 people on board were killed. Iran initially denied that it was one of their missiles at all and has continued to block a full investigation. Amongst the victims were the wife and 9-year-old daughter of Iranian-Canadian dentist Hamed Esmaeilion. A new documentary, 752 is Not a Number, chronicles his quest for answers.
Where is my daughter now? She was supposed to be at the school in grade 5 right now, but she's in a cemetery, and I want to know what happened to my wife and my daughter.
The site of the disaster, the evidence are in Iran. Nobody outside of Iran has any direct access.
What about the truth?
یک سیستم نظامی امنیتی میاد یه پدافند ضد هوایی رو کار میذاره نزدیک فرودگاه و از اونجا به بعدی که قصه ما شروع میشه.
So that is the director of the film that you just saw there in that last scene. That is Babak Payami. He is sitting right here as well, along with Hamed Esmaeilion, both joining me now. Welcome to you both, guys. Thanks for joining us on this.
Thank you.
Hamed, if you will allow me, I know this is hard for you. I'm sure very much to talk about even still, 2 years later. If you can take me back to that day that you learned of the crash of this plane.
Yeah, the day, January 8th, that was the day that they were supposed to, their plane was supposed to land in Toronto, and I was supposed to go to the airport. So the night before, like the time that their plane took off from Tehran airport, I was cleaning the house and putting gas in Paris's car and making everything ready for them after 13 days of their trip to Iran. And then I had heard that Iran had attacked U.S. bases in Iraq, and I was in agony. I was very stressed. But then when I saw the plane took off, and when I saw the plane actually is close to the borders, then I said, okay, they're safe. But that was just an automatic radar.
Real.
No, it wasn't real. And then like 1 hour later, I found 8 missed calls on my cell phone.
And you started to figure out what had happened.
I realized that what's happened.
Babak, the film, I watched it from beginning to end. It is incredible. And so much about it is Hamed seeking justice, right? Why did you want to make this film?
Well, I didn't set out to make a documentary. When this happened, everybody in the community got caught up with the story. I was called by some friends, mutual friends that we had, Hamed and I didn't know each other, to help. They told me Hamed is going to Iran and there might be trouble, and what can you do to help? For me, it was just a matter of emotional involvement. And we started liaising with the government officials. Once Hamed came back, after learning that the plane was shot down, he decided to return the remains of his wife and daughter to Canada. Once he came back and the memorial was finished and COVID restrictions were hitting, we had a chance to sit down and really talk face to face about justice, about what to do next. I mean, I was dealing with a person who, justifiably, was devastated. And he's a writer, I'm a filmmaker, and I think one of the best things that I could have done was to memorialize what he's going through as an example of the 176 other victims' families that they were going through. And by extension, a whole nation is going through.
Hamed, right after you learned that your wife and daughter were killed, were murdered in that plane crash, you went back to Iran, right, to try and seek answers, to bring them home, to bring them back to Canada, the home where you all lived together. And every step of the way, when you were in Iran, you faced roadblocks, you faced bureaucracy. You were not even able to attend the memorial in your wife's hometown, right? Why was that?
At the first place, my decision was to bury Rira and Parisa in Iran. But as soon as I learned that the Islamic Republic of Iran is the reason of the downing of the plane, that they have shot down at least 2 missiles to the plane, so the whole family, we decided to bring them to Canada. And after that decision, we knew that the Iranian government wouldn't let us to do that because they wanted to prove that all the 176 passengers and an unborn child, they were Iranians, they were buried here. There's no legal point here for other countries. So I contacted our government in Canada, and they said, if you get arrested, we can't do anything, so you have to stay in low profile. So that's why I couldn't attend the memorials, and it was a big fight to repatriate the remains.
This might be a naive question, Hamed, but how have you been able to survive? How have you been able to turn this tragedy for yourself into a fight for justice, to wake up every day, put your shoes on, put your shirt on, put your pants on, work on this documentary, having lost your wife and daughter? What's driving you right now?
I think now, after I realize what we have gone through after 3 years, I can say that you have two options. Option one is to stay home, go through depression, PTSD, and option two is to fight. And not only me, I can tell you the majority of the families of Flight PS752 are fighters, and they won't give up.
I want to play, before we talk about that, I want to play a little bit of what you said about your daughter and how you taught her to love Iran in spite of everything that has happened since then. Let's watch.
بچه‌مو یه جوری بزرگ کردم که اونجا رو دوست داشته باشه، حس کنه متعلق به اونجاست. همیشه وقتی فکر میکرد میگفت متولد تهرانم، میگفت من مثلا یه ایرانی کاناداییم.
You know what's so interesting to me, because that really resonated with me as an Iranian American as well. I think so many people live in this space of loving the country that they are from culturally, right? But also in ways despising it because it doesn't offer, right, what they need, what they want to live a full life. And it seems to me that is also what's coming through in some of what you talked about, that you taught your daughter to love this country, and yet that country was the very country that killed your wife and daughter at the end.
I can say that country is my homeland, and I still love it. And I don't blame the country for that. I blame the regime. I blame the government who runs that country.
Yeah.
In my opinion, like people of Iran, they have been very, very sympathetic to us the whole 3 years. The first 3 days, you remember, they went to the street and they chanted against the Islamic regime. And even now, justice is not just for like PS752, but PS752 is part of this movement and this revolution that's happening in Iran. Like this is the link of the chain of the crimes that they have committed in the last 43 years. And I think people of Iran, they want to seek justice for PS752 as well in this fight that they have with the regime.
Babak, what is the takeaway that you want people to hear from this documentary as they're watching it?
Well, I think the last sentence spoken in the film, that I will never give up,
yeah.
I think that is key. And that is what inspired me to document this and to show the world. At the very beginning, we had this conversation going back to that we said, justice for him is to have his wife and daughter back, but that's never going to happen. So true justice is in the fight for it, is to make sure that it's not forgotten, the memories of these families are not forgotten, the truth is revealed, and the real culprits are held accountable. And I think for me, in this film, both in the aesthetics to convey that sense of immediacy and urgency of this unfolding story,
yeah.
but understanding that they're fighting for not only out of self-interest, but they're fighting for a bigger cause that is ultimately the cause of the Iranian people.